Gardens residential area. And our desire then and now is to make the process work for our property, but also be easier for future community gardens in the town of Comox. As you know, community gardens have very many benefits, including enhancing local food security, building community, producing nutritious food, and also opportunities for education. And many communities are now actively supporting community gardens in their areas. The proposed changes to the bylaw that you'll hear about, I guess, later in the meeting enable community gardens to be closer to certain lot lines, which allows more flexibility for future gardens, and allows our property to fit a community garden into unused space, which otherwise wouldn't have worked. And all this while maintaining protection of neighbors' rights, safety, and setbacks for sidewalks. So we are in support of the bylaw amendments for bylaw 1832. And Erin's just going to talk about this right now.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you again for allowing us to present today. Our goal is to obtain council support for reimbursement of the development variance application fee that will be necessary to remove the screening requirement that remains for our proposed community garden site. It is on the northwest corner of the Comox Pentecostal Church's property, located on 1919 Dutton Road, again abutting the Plateau Garden. And presently, there's a requirement for a 1.8 meter high screen along the fence line between the two properties. Currently, there is a chain link fence just along here, and in 2015, in June, we advertised in the community around us and held a meeting to determine the interest of community members and provide an opportunity for any concerns to be raised about our idea of having a community garden in its location. In addition, we went door to door to discuss with residents of Plateau Gardens, as they are the ones, our nearest neighbors, and we received only positive feedback about the garden and its placement. We believe that screening in our location would present several concerns. It would provide a visual barrier to many of the community members we're hoping to involve, potentially decreasing their involvement in the garden activities. The shading also would reduce the area of the garden that receives adequate sunlight, leading to decreased productivity, and would also limit exposure to the beauty we are hoping to bring into the area. We are concerned screening would present some safety and vandalization issues, as activities in the garden would be visible to fewer numbers of people. We have also been in contact with Nanaimo, Victoria, and Vancouver parks and city officials, and they do not have screening requirements for their community gardens there. In Vancouver, there is a consultation around the initiation of community gardens, but they do not require a development variance application fee for that consultation, actually provide some funds towards the garden. So as the DEP application fee is substantial, and as the garden itself will require a significant fundraising commitment, it provides a hardship to our efforts. It's anticipated that the garden will provide benefit to the community. As we believe the screening will mitigate some of those benefits, we're asking consideration be given to the DEP application fee being reimbursed.
All right.
We're happy to answer any
Thank
questions.
you. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Guy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you've been around and talked to the neighbors, and you know, I was just, that was going to be my question, because I don't see any need to charge you a fee to get a development permit to not put a screen up, as long as the neighbors are happy with it, so I don't have any problem.
Okay, we'll be discussing that later in the agenda, but Councillor Price.
And I'd just like to thank you for all your work and research. You've obviously done a lot, and Vancouver is a great example of how they grow in food in the city. And yeah, it's great to do whatever I can to encourage you.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. This sounds really exciting. I'm a gardener too, so I appreciate what you're doing. But I do have a question, too, perhaps, if I'm allowed.
Yeah.
First of all, how are you going to protect your garden from the deer? Because that's a concern in our
We
community.
do want it fenced. We
Okay.
just don't want it an opaque
So-
screening. It's the need to have it so the neighbors cannot see it. That's the concern. The fencing, we think, we agree is going to
And
be
the fact
essential.
that you would
Yeah.
have something out
Between the rabbits and the deer, yes,
Yes, exactly.
pretty much that.
And if I might, you mentioned that you perhaps would like community gardens in other locations. Are you anticipating having a surplus, and what would you use that surplus produce for? Would you be selling it, or just?
No, we wouldn't,
No.
so it's completely nonprofit, but we had anticipated with many ideas, but one of the ideas is having education, things like that. So if there is a surplus, we would donate it either through the church, which already has a food bank, or also through the local food banks, which I know accept garden produce, so, yeah.
Yeah, I have many ideas circulating around even about involving parents potentially to come into the church's kitchen area and learn how to produce healthy meals for their kids and things like that using some of the things they've grown. So this is kind of a first step, but yeah, we have lots of ideas where this could potentially work.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor McKenna?
Well, just kudos to you. I know I was impressed the first time I heard your idea, and I'm sure there'll be some bumps along the way, and just that you're trying the idea and to create community and let alone sustainable growing of food is a great example. So hopefully it works out well and we become a model community because of your initiative.
All right, anybody else with questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. We'll be dealing with your matter shortly. All right, so moving on to the agenda, we have for receipt, or for approval, the minutes of February 3rd council meeting.
Move.
Second. On approval then, all in favor? Motion's carried. Committee of the whole meeting minutes for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Two recommendations coming out of that committee for consideration tonight. One is to amend the draft financial plan regarding Rob Avenue cost estimate, and that staff be authorized to defer up to $400,000 in road resurfacing costs from 2019 to 2020, capital projects, as well as defer construction of the pickleball courts from 2020 in order to help balance the plan.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Councillor Arnott.
Have we heard anything from the pickleball people?
Not as of yet.
No? Okay.
And it doesn't mean that we won't be doing that project, it just means it won't be necessarily in the financial plan. We're still waiting for the feasibility study.
Yeah.
And I've encouraged them, as I'm sure others have, to continue with their fundraising efforts to look at other possible solutions.
And the deferral, if the future looks better and there's more services, then maybe the opportunity to bring it back into the
Yes, for sure.
timeframe.
Yeah. Maybe temporarily not, but not for now.
Yes.
No. All right, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And regarding the funding request from the Alberta Project Society, that a grant of $2,500 for the year 2016 be provided.
Move. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
I just can say, I did go to the Anne Frank
Oh, yeah.
display, and if you haven't gone to see it, you really should. It's excellent, and it's not really very much longer.
Just another month, isn't it, or something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. All those in favor then? No committee reports, unfinished business. We have a management report for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Just point out here that the tender for the Marina project has been issued and is scheduled to close next week. And I understand they had a contractors meeting last week. So that's moving on, and we'll hopefully get a good result on the tender. Hear about that, I imagine, in early March.
Have we been getting many people pick up packages? And
As far as I know, there was a good turnout of the contractors meeting. I don't know how many.
Yeah, I think there was 8 different companies represented at the meeting.
some local people?
Majority of them were local.
Yeah, I heard one from one of the material suppliers phoned me about the project because they didn't know what it was, and they were asked to provide quotes for some of the trusses for some of the buildings.
Right.
So yeah, positive. All right, so we moved receipt on that. Anything else on the?
I'm assuming there's no update on the next game?
Nothing. No. We'll probably see it in the newspaper at some point. Not sure where that procurement is at. Last I heard, it was, bids were supposed to be in by January, but there's under review. One story I heard said that to submit the bids, they actually had to utilize trucks to submit all this paperwork because there was so much paper. Like literally, like moving trucks full of paper. So now it's a little more complicated, I guess, these days.
Yeah.
So
Executive summary, please.
that's in Ottawa, so thank you. We don't have to do that at the moment. So, all right, so that's deals with the manager report. So for the rezoning application at 537 Anderson Road,
I would move adoption.
yeah, I'll say doing that for adoption and the variance permits. Actually, we'll do it one at a time. Adoption of the bylaw. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
And then I'll move the variance permit.
Thank you. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to bylaws, we have brought before us here the development cost charges bylaw, and recommendation from staff is to give it first, second, and third readings.
I'll move that.
CAO, I'll just turn over to you to explain the process from here once it's passed.
So, given the 3 readings, we will forward it to the ministry, and the inspector of municipalities will have a look, and if it meets their standard, which I anticipate it will, because we did have third-party engineer prepare the report to the standards that they expect. And once we get their approval, it'll come back to council for adoption and implementation.
So as set out in your report on this, we're looking at reductions for single-family residential and multifamily residential,
Correct.
as well as congregate care, in the range of 30 to 40%, which should be good news. I know that there was good feedback on that from the development community. Can you just explain why those reductions are happening?
We basically updated our project list for capital projects that are coming in the future. And what falls out of a portion of that is that our water and storm drain DCC funds are adequate for the required works that we have, and it brings down the categories that we're funding to roads, which is the big hit, and the big hit of roads is noticeable on the commercial categories, and sanitary sewer and parks. So that the reduction of the projects that we have is basically what's driving a lot of that.
Councilor Grant?
So good to remember too that these reductions are only on the Comox portion of DCCs.
Correct.
We're not talking about regional district DCCs, but also I think that it's really important to notice that our downtown vitalization area is also seeing an 11% decrease, which really fits in nicely with trying to get our downtown more vibrant and moving along. So I think it bodes well all the way around, and I think this is a really good step for us, considering I think most of the other communities are actually raising theirs. So
Yes, and that's a reflection of if you have people living in the downtown core, they tend to not use their vehicles as much. There's less impact on the roads, and that's reflected in the DCC categories.
And the infrastructure for water and sewer are already there. So. Yeah, because currently, for example, single-family residential DCC is 19,421, and with this proposed 41% reduction for that category, it'll reduce now to 15,456, which is inclusive of the regional district DCC of 9,682, and then similar reductions for multifamily and so on, which is good. And the comparables that are shown there for some of the adjacent communities are, we're certainly within the range of being competitive.
mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions, comments? So we've moved, and all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. How long will that take for the inspector of municipalities to figure?
I anticipate we'll get something back within the month.
Okay. So adoption perhaps as early as April.
Yes.
Great.
was noted in the public open house that it was a very positive comments, feedback.
Yeah, we may be in a situation which is unusual for DCCs where developers might hold off a little bit just to make sure that they get it, whereas in the past, DCCs were being looked at, it was to get in early before they got hired. But if it's April, that's good news. All right, so we'll move on to new business. We have a couple of variance permit applications. First of all, for 2166 Wallace Avenue, and the recommendation from staff is that the development's variance permit be issued.
I'll move that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So this is the first of two that are dealing with the secondary suites, and the planner is here, so maybe I'll just have them explain what it is, why we're doing a variance for this kind of application.
Certainly. Our current secondary suite allowance is successful in large part because it's modeled on legal secondary suites, which people try to do without causing neighborhood attention. So usually it was two-story buildings, and then they were suiting either the first floor or the second floor. And so that's a very easy suiting able to do without disrupting the single-family character. When you get into side-by-side suites, it's a lot harder to ensure that you're not going to give an outward appearance from the street that there's a suite, so as to maintain a single-family character. So we're currently dealing with those on a variance permit basis, and that way council and the community can see the design, see that it still represents a single-family dwelling from the street prior to approval.
And this one in particular is essentially closing in a carport.
Correct.
A garage, this one. The other one is a carport.
Well,
Say that again?
Just looking at the pictures on page 49. In any event, thank you for that clarification. Any discussion further? Yes.
I do support these secondary suites because I think they're great for those who have a limited income, so they can still live in our great community co-ops, and it helps those who are living there. However, I do have some concerns that I think are increasing as we move forward with this, that we're getting a lot of off-street parking. I know Cortez is one area that people have some concerns with. I think it was Forrester, that there was a lot of concerns when I was knocking on doors a year and a half ago. And so this is one of those catch-22. Is we're providing a great service, but now we're, like in this instance here, we have a garage or carport that's being utilized. Now I know from reading through there's still a couple parking spaces available for the people. I just ask that we kind of police that, through our bylaw officer, and check that people are parking appropriately, that we're not clogging up the streets too much, because that's a bit of an issue with the secondary suites in some neighborhoods.
Actually an issue in most neighborhoods even without secondary suites.
Well, yeah.
So I don't know how you're proposing policing it. Do you have any comments on that, CEO?
Well, the parking is permitted on the street. I think that if congestion in a neighborhood becomes problematic, we would then have to look at enforcing by either time restriction or a less appealing approach is by permit parking, which is a bit of a nightmare to administer. But we would just have to sign and enforce. At present, nobody is parking illegally unless a vehicle is parked for more than 24 hours on the street. But if they're coming and going, from the approval of these suites, we ensure that there is adequate off-street parking. We do not go the extra step as to what you're suggesting of ensuring they park in the off-street parking area.
Yeah, one example that I have is parking. Folks are parking on the boulevard and just destroying the boulevard, and so the bylaw officer I know is dealt with that. But I think that's what's happening, so we need to have that enforcement that, yes, if there is a complaint, then the bylaw officer goes and deals
Yeah.
with that.
And we can look at that. We can look
Yeah.
at the boulevard parking is
Yeah.
straight out illegal, and we can look at
Mhm.
enforcing on that angle, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, well, thanks for that. Councillor Price and then McKenna.
Yes, and there was a letter, wasn't there, from the neighbour expressing concern or in opposition to having this change. I did have a drive-by today, and that's how I know for sure it's cardboard. And I think it's perhaps more a concern when you have something added to your neighbourhood, you've got another person, the door will come off on the side, so they might see the person going in. But when you look at the layout of the suite, it would be very difficult to change it so that they would come in off the road. And I don't know how much difference that would make. Because of the letter, I did go and take a look. So I think it's one of these things that sometimes what we fear doesn't actually come to fruition. And I think the strength of our secondary suite bylaw is that the owner has to occupy either the house or the secondary suite. So you aren't going to have the problems you get with rentals because you've got somebody there who's going to make sure that it's respectfully done. And I know in the neighbourhood behind me, there's one or two secondary suites have gone in, and they are so nice. I mean, and it's as quiet as anything. I walk the dogs, and you would think no one actually lived in this whole subdivision because apart from the other dog walkers, you don't see a soul. So I think it is a very good way of getting rental accommodations. So even given that concern of the neighbour, I will be supporting it.
All right, Councillor McKenna.
I think Councillor Price has clarified this, but I'd just add that the protocol question, perhaps for the public, is that if a letter did come in objecting to a secondary suite, I assume in the protocol that letter is then sent to the developer or owner of the home? Or does it just come to the town? I don't want to open up a hornet's nest, but...
It's part of the file.
Comes part of the file.
Part of the public record, and it is distributed to council. So if the applicant wishes to look at their file or comes into the planning desk and asks what submissions have been received or have not, then that is available.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that if it is shared, that concerns can sometimes be addressed.
And I think that letter was focusing on perhaps an expansion of the footprint of this building, which isn't happening, really, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
This is an infill of an infill.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway,
Yeah.
fair enough. Anything further then?
Well, just to further what Councillor Price said, to say, I used to live on Slater Place, and we bought a lot there. There was no one behind us. And as it turned out, there was 4 houses that kind of backed on our lot. 3 of them put suites in. So you do the odds of that, a 10% take up, and they all went behind our house. You wouldn't even know there was a suite there. It was as if nothing. You couldn't even tell. It was a really good neighborhood, and it was never an issue. So I think you're right that a lot of times there's a fear there, but it's not founded when the time comes, especially when the owners have to live in the house. So I would agree with you on that.
All right, so on this variance permit, are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And then the second one is for the property at 1790 Rob. And again, a recommendation that the variance permit be issued.
I'll move that.
Second. So moved and seconded. This one is slightly different. It's not a carport infill, but it's basically looking at an addition that was already made to that property and converting that into a portion of that property to a secondary suite. And again, the issue around parking is noted there in terms of 2 parking spaces on site within the front and 2 side yards. And I don't know if there's anything else that you had questions about. Comments? No? Any discussion then? No discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. All right, then moving forward to page 69, the community gardens rezoning application, and staff are recommending that be given first and second reading.
So, I'll second that. And is this the appropriate time to grant them their request for not charging them for the development permit? Or should we do that later?
I guess we should vote on the first and second reading first. Then we can deal with the variance application.
Just not finding if there's a...
So this is just a zoning amendment which applies to this site and I assume other sites that could possibly have community gardens. Right? Correct. Yeah. So any discussion on that aspect of it?
Well, I think it's great that we've actually clarified this point and that it opens it up to schools. Schools are getting much more engaged, and now we've done the work. So again, yeah, kudos to the community to encourage us.
So this will of course go to public hearing, but first and second reading, all those in favor? Motion's carried. And then we need to schedule a public hearing, and that'll be scheduled, I understand, coincidental with the council meeting?
Correct.
So motion that a public hearing be scheduled and located at the council chambers.
Move that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Then in terms of process, the question that Councillor Grant asked regarding the DVP. So we don't actually have a DVP application submitted yet?
Correct.
So at what point in time do we
I would assume.
do the reimbursement?
The motion that would be required on page 71.
Right.
Just above financial implications, I would just delete the word will, so that it says the town, the motion will be that the town reimburse the application fee for development variance permit. And it goes on.
Okay, so is that what we do now?
Yes, if you wish.
All right, so I would move what he just said.
Okay, so then,
I'll second that.
moved and seconded.
I can't find it, I think it was lying, it's not on 71.
Page 71.
Oh,
All right, any further discussion on the reimbursement? Okay, that'll save them from having another bake sale.
Well, you know, you get a lot of broccoli, that's pretty expensive now. It's cauliflower.
cauliflower, yeah.
Cauliflower, that's what
All
I don't
right,
eat either.
all those in favor?
It's usually, but I can't afford it.
All right, thank you for that. So that'll go through the process for the public hearing and then consider third reading and adoption. All righty, so we're on to correspondence, page 83. This is the letter from the Royal Canadian Naval Association regarding the Battle Atlantic service.
I'm on receipt. Are they asking us for anything?
Yeah, granting permission.
And we grant the request.
Move the second one.
So that's on Sunday, May 1st, and there'll be a flag past as part of that ceremony. All in favor? Motion's carried. And then a letter from the regional district regarding the required amendment for the Comox Valley Sewage Service Establishment bylaw.
Move receipt of that.
And the town consent for the adoption of
Yes.
that amendment. Okay. So moved and seconded on the consent. And CIO, from what I gather, this is specifically deal with Comox First Nation Reserves 1 and 2 and HMCS Squadron.
Yes, those are the current specific issues that are driving it, but it would allow either Courtney or Comox in the future to contract sewer services as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. No late items. Delegations we're finished with. Reports from members of council. So, start with Councillor Margaret.
Thank you. Yes, solid waste is the first. Councillor Swift and I attended our solid waste meeting, and the highlights that I have chosen to mention are, first of all, EDA were awarded a contract for detailed design of the leachate treatment facility in 2014. So I'm starting to get back now to the current time. This contract wasn't formalized because a third-party review was going to be considered for a design review, and the reason for that was going to be to identify any errors or omissions that may have taken place, possible improvements and potential cost savings. So Morrison Hirschfield were hired, and their review identified a cost saving of $350,000, very significant, by managing the design and leachate treatment system as a design-build contract rather than a detailed design contract. It's also expected that using this design-build approach, other cost savings will be realized. Also of note was the new engineered landfill and related leachate treatment system are included in the 2016-2020 financial plan and approved for $20,550,000. Changes made to the cells of the new landfill are designed to enlarge the space that's available, and to do so they revise the north-south cell orientation and increasing the depth of the cells to 10 meters. Also, they making a change in the liner design. And the big news, of course, is given the estimated airspace in the existing landfill construction for the new landfill will begin in August 2016. So we're getting to the point where our first landfill is full. And also, Hospital Board, Tom Sparrow progress report. He did a marvelous job of telling us that everything is up to date and our budget is good and we can look forward to some lovely tours in the future. Also, he highlighted the transition between St. Joseph's Hospital and the new facility, which is going to be a work of science, I think, applied more than excellent coordination. It's going to be quite a process. Also, might mention that Councillor Roger Kishi from Cumberland Council was reappointed to the St. Joseph Board. And then quickly through, I attended the seniors meeting. They very proudly announced that they have 720 members. And also they made a point of expressing their appreciation of the town's support, which was rather nice. And they're getting ready to celebrate the 40th anniversary. The library, last month I reported on their regional progress, and this time I've chosen to go to the local and a lovely visit with Nancy Duncan. And we talked first of all about KFN writers, and do we have any writers, and what is being done to promote writing and book reading on behalf of the KFN. And interestingly enough, she came up with two things. First of all, she's taking books in the library to identify KFN writers, which was great to know. And also there's a BC Aboriginal Writing Contest 2016. Children between the ages of 15 and 20 are being encouraged to participate for the Aboriginals. Also, they create a writing course for young people as well. So that's all very good. Also, we talked about picking local writers as well as KFN and Mac Lane. And unfortunately, they don't have any Mac Lane literature there, but I did mention that there's that the museum has his diary, which is quite interesting reading, so she was going to make a point of going down to pick one up. And then, of course, physically, the fireplace in the middle of their meeting room is always a good point for discussion. Attended the Lunar New Year, Year of the Monkey. I won't go any further than that. I did have my opportunity to speak to the pickleball expert, Steve Chambers, and also attended, along with Councillor Swift, our second Shakeside meeting. It's a great time. It's a getting to know you process, and our next meeting is going to be a tour of the facility and a great brainstorming time.
All right, thanks for that. Councillor McKenna, you're up next.
Yes, briefly, a few events here. February 7th, I attended the Lunar New Year celebrations at the Native Sons Hall. Family Day celebrations at the Rec Center, and hats off and kudos to our staff and sponsors for putting on all those activities on Family Day. Yesterday, I had a unique job representing the town as a judge at the School District 71 District Spelling Bee. Man, that's hard work telling kids that they're wrong and they spelled words wrong. That's no fun. And finally, yesterday, I had a more fun activity as Kathy and I became grandparents for the second time. That was hard work too.
You didn't correct them on the spelling of potatoes, did you? 'Cause that didn't go well with another politician years ago.
That's my report, Your Worship.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Price.
Yes, well, I did attend Kate Butcher's memorial service, past curator, And I did bring the town's condolences to the family and friends. I walked in the second annual Valentine's Day Walking with Our Sisters to commemorate missing and murdered Indigenous Aboriginal women. I also attended yesterday, along with Councillor Grant, attended the Sewage Commission, Water Committee, Sports Commission and the RD Committee of the Whole. So one or two highlights. We did have a good overview of the regional growth strategy, and 86% of all trips in the Comox Valley are single-person car occupancy. So we've got quite a ways to go on that. And the growth strategy is based on 90% of growth within core settlement areas and 10% within the rural areas. So we seem to be heading in that direction. And also that the change in new housing mix, so that by 2030 we move to more high density. Currently in 2006, 5%, moving to 30%. And then a move away from low density of 75%, which is the base level, to looking at 40% in 2030. So policies around that. Yes, so anybody who wants more details, very modest budget, $1.21 per average house is what we paid for that. Every 5 years, and we're coming up to this, that we must look at whether a review is necessary and do some consulting of past stakeholders and to see if that is a process we're going to. The Homeless Support Service was approved, although we are outside the service but participating separately. Just to let you know that 80,000 was approved for at the Committee of the Whole to go to the Board, for the Comox Valley Transition Society to create 2 new units of transitional housing, and 70,000 to the Comox Valley Recovery Centre for 4 units of transitional housing. And it's anticipated that our 30,000 will be going to the Comox Valley Recovery Centre towards those 4 transitional units. And so basically, we went through the budgets, the exhibition ground, the good news, and I know the Stubbs will be very happy about the new roof for the indoor riding arena, which is actually going to be considerably more than anticipated, 110,000 versus the original 50,000 budgeted. And transit, I mean, there's lots of great information comes up. We put in 1.5 million is the requisition for transit, and the overall budget is 5 million because BC Transit does half, and then we get all the fares, and we get over 600,000 to go to our share of the costs. So and basically we were receiving budgets at the other committees, and I'm sure there will be. One interesting thing was for the Sports Commission as a way to look at controlling parking, so that people going to the hospital and North Island College, which is going to have paid parking too, don't all park at the aquatics, the View Aquatic Centre, is going to put up a parking kiosk, and basically you have to go inside the building to register what number parking spot you're in, and still seems a little bit...
So parking will be free there, but you'll have to have a chit in the window in order to prove that you're actually going in swimming.
Otherwise, you will get towed.
Or reprimanded in some way.
Are you going to have a fine? I think it's going to be a little note saying, please don't do this. I think we might need a strong deterrent than that.
That'll work.
Rather you didn't. But fines seem to work. I certainly found at St. Joe's Hospital, having had one myself, parking for 5 minutes. But anyway, they did a lot of work, and it'd be good to see, and it'll evolve. Oh, and the heat exchange system is going to have big savings. So yeah, a lot of good things happening.
All right. Councillor Swift.
Okay, since we last reported out, I attended a meeting between the Philbur, the BIA, and the Nautical Days Committee, which was the second time that we come together as a group. This time we had Susan Woods, who of course is the BIA and Nautical Days person, and the organizers, the festival organizers from the Philbur attend, and we basically turned it over to them to figure out some ways to continue and to grow the festival weekend and to collaborate together. So we'll see if they can come up with some things. Some of the things they were considering were transportation and so on. So we'll see what they come up with. I attended the solid waste meeting, and of course it is budget time. There was significant discussion around trying to smooth out the requisition because there's considerable expenditures. I believe it was unfortunate, but it was defeated in the first vote. So the second option was selected, which will see $2 million this year, for the next, and then $6 million the following year in 2018 and beyond. So we'll see what happens. And I think part of the problem is there is a bit of there's an opportunity to, they're not entirely sure which projects. The waste energy piece seems to be growing a bit of momentum. So anyway, that's where we're at with that one. So we'll see what happens next. And the landfill closure is proceeding on time. I also attended the hospital meeting where Charlie Hartfield was re-elected as the chair. He's the rep from Campbell River, one of the reps. And of course, Roger Kishi is going to continue at the St. Joseph's Hospital board. And as Councillor Grant mentioned, we did have quite a presentation from Tom Sparrow, and he was quite disappointed. We were quite meeting out at the end, but there are some good drone shots, presentations of both hospitals, which we did not see, but you can go online and see them if you're so interested. And the Comox Valley Hospital is scheduled to open in September of 2017, slightly after Campbell River. I think they're a little bit ahead of us. I did meet with the Backlying Advisory Group again. We had our second meeting, and we were advised at that time that because of the community charter, the meetings cannot be closed, as we had suggested they might be able to be. So they are open to the public. And the minutes will be posted on the town website. And lastly, I attended the Sewage Commission meeting yesterday.
How was that?
It was wonderful. So that's my report.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ernest.
Well, I didn't do much because I was in our lovely capital of Ottawa, but I did crash Mayor Ives' visit to the ribbon cutting of the Integrated Personnel Support Unit Center at CFB Comox, which is a great facility. They've had a ATCO trailer, a couple ATCO trailers on the base for a while, but now they have their new building, and it's quite nice and help summer members. So that's what I was able to do.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor
Okay,
Grant.
my turn. Well, I attended the sewer committee, water committee, sports commission, and the committee of the whole yesterday. Most of that was budget, as Councillor Price said. One thing that we did do was we passed a resolution to start recording votes at the regional district. And there was a lot of discussion over streaming. It was kind of interesting because it was unanimous except for the 3 area directors didn't want to record the votes, but everybody else seemed to think it was a good idea. So read into that what you will.
Did you record the vote?
Well, we passed it. Yeah. We also talked about the exhibition grounds, transit. An interesting fact that came out of the transit that I picked up on was 80% of our ride is subsidized. So that's a big expense and something that really needs to be looked at, how we can make that much more efficient if we can, because that's a lot of subsidization for a ride for us. Also in the water committee, We heard from David Stapley and Wayne White, both came and brought some of their expertise to us. Basically, Dave Stapley was talking about water monitoring and finding out exactly where all of this particulate is coming from. We know where the major source is coming from, Perseverance Creek, where Cumberland put the dam in and that bank collapsed up in the hills. But there's all sorts of other little tributaries that are coming down that are also bringing some share of the clay and particulate into the water. So they were suggesting that we do some monitoring to find out exactly what is in that water and where the sources of turbidity are and what we could do to mitigate that problem. The regional district is going to look closely at that. That's in a report that they're bringing up as well. So in order to deal with, well, we then talked to Wayne White, and he got talking about the decision tree. And he's a bit of an expert in how this works, and he followed it through, and there are some ways around or mitigating some of the boil water advisories, but it's really up to us or up to the regional district to prove through the science that there's nothing in it. The health department isn't going to do that, it's up to us to do that. So that goes right back to that whole testing piece that they talked about. So that was pretty interesting, and the RD is onto that too, so we should be getting a report from them in the near future. And they also talked about a water management plan, which is a different ministry than the health ministry. And basically what a management plan would be to get all the players around the lake together and have them manage the watershed collaboratively rather than having hard and fast rules, but get the logging companies and Cumberland and us to sort of sit down and put a plan together on how we would manage that. So it was pretty interesting stuff, and pretty it was a bit of an eye-opener for most people sitting there, I think. So
Isn't there already a watershed assembly group?
You want to say watershed protection
there is
plan?
there's a watershed protection plan. This is something a little bit different. This is more of a management thing, yeah. But all of this goes to, at the end of the day, finding out whether there really is a need for filtration or there isn't. We've been told we have to, so...
It's up to us to prove that we don't.
Well, and whether we can prove that or not, I don't know, but at least we could probably help with some of these boil water advisories that we keep getting, as long as we can prove that there's really nothing that's dangerous in the water. So that was pretty interesting. So, and that's pretty much all I've done.
All right, thank you for that. Just report on the things since our last council meeting that I've been involved with. I presented at Comox Rotary on the state of the town and gave some updates on some of our projects that are unfolding here this year. Attended the Lunar Fest opening with the rest of the Year of the Monkey participants. I won't comment on the photo and the echo, but following that I had lunch with John Watson and Don McRae, as well as the Taiwan Economic Cultural Officer Tom Lee. He's replaced William Chang, and a nice fellow, and we shared lots of different things that we've been doing with regards to things like agriculture and some of the opportunities that there are for sharing cultural experiences. So there'll be more to follow on that. Northumberland College is embarking on a survey around funding for a capital campaign, so I participated in a telephone conference for that. Had lunch as well with John Watson and a couple of developer proponents for the Comox Mall, and I know that they've been talking to their staff about some possibilities there, so that's kind of exciting. Contract Management Committee for the RCMP had a teleconference, and that was just an update on some of the issues that we've been talking about recently in terms of our local RCMP. Went down to Victoria, met with members of the cabinet in my capacity as a climate leadership team member, and that was a good precursor to the budget, which I attended yesterday in Victoria, and most of the news on that is known by now. There was lots of mayors there. I met and talked to the mayor of Kamloops, and he told me that he and some other mayors had met with the Minister of Environment that day to talk about the issues around MMBC. Kamloops, Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Mission are all on the outside looking in like us. So he said it was a very productive meeting, and it hopefully will result in some break of that impasse, as we all know. It's still out there for us. The IPSC opening ceremony, and I also had coffee with another fellow who is involved with the tech industry. He's looking to retire here out of North Van, and similar to other approaches that we've had from other individuals, we'll try to exchange contact particulars with them so that they can talk to our staff about some of the ideas that they have, along with CDES as well. And that's my report. Media questions at this time? Any questions from members of the public? No? So that's our agenda, and a motion to adjourn. Second. In favor? Meeting adjourned.